The magic is when they understand the distinction of the role. So the CEO is the champion of the company. They are the ones that are making it happen. The chair is the steward of the boardroom, ensuring that the board works together to give the CEO everything they need to accomplish the job they've given to him or her. And there needs to be great respect for each other.
This is the Organizational Health Advantage podcast with Keith Hadley and James Felton, principal consultants at Table Group. They're in the business of coaching leaders to build strategic focus and cultural alignment that leads to amazing results. Welcome to the Org Health Advantage.
Welcome back to the Org Health Advantage podcast. I'm your co-host, James Felton. I'm joined, as usually, with Keith Hadley. Keith, how are you?
Hey, James, I'm doing well. I'm really excited to be on this episode with Jim, our guest, because last time we had Rick Packer as our special co-host. So, Jim,
Yes.
Thank you for coming back.
So good to be with you guys. It's just like getting together with old friends. So nice to be on the show with you.
Yes,
Very true.
It is. It is. And Jim, we're excited. In our last podcast with you, we talked about your book, The Imperfect CEO. And in that
Visual
podcast,
aid.
we mentioned, yep, there it is. And in that podcast, we mentioned that you actually had a book that came out 20 years ago, and that is The Imperfect Board Member. And why we are talking about it now is because you're doing a 20th anniversary release of it, correct?
Correct. Yes. 20 years have flown by.
And it is not just like, hey, let's redo the cover and put a 20th anniversary sticker on it. You've actually put a lot more work into this, correct?
Absolutely. So just like The Imperfect CEO, the book begins with a fable, a story, and then the rest of it explains what's going on in the interaction between the people in the story and goes a little deeper into the model, shall we say.
Yeah.
Well, this new edition goes much further. It's got chapters that tackle some hotter issues that have arisen in boardrooms over the last 20 years. So it expands on that, and it provides a bunch of tools that boards can use to work together, to resolve problems, to just build their effectiveness. So it's more than it was.
Yeah. Well, I'm really excited because first of all, the last episode you did with us was fantastic on the Imperfect CEO. We're
Thank you.
doing now a sequel episode for the prequel book, which has now been updated to be the sequel for the other book. But here's what I'm excited is that when James and I, our table group work puts us with CEOs and exec teams all the time. Every week we're talking with a different team. One of the topics that often is on the agenda is managing their board. Sometimes that's coming from a place of, they're about to roll out a major initiative. Sometimes they're reacting to something that the board has told them or expected of them. Sometimes it's a relationship that's terrific. Sometimes it's a relationship fraught with tension. But that is a very common dynamic that we are discussing. And so, I'm glad we can put this on the table. So what has changed in the last 20 years? What were the chapters that you wrote or you updated?
Well, first, let's just clarify that a whole lot has stayed the same. The principles of what makes boards really work and what their job is, that's not changing. It's not going to change in the foreseeable future either. When we focus on what has changed, there's been an even greater increase of compliance requirement, more regulations that boards are required to follow. And that can sometimes drag boards into more of a protecting role rather than a directing role. If they really fall there, and many boards do, that's especially hard on management because management's looking forward. They're trying to figure out how do we be the company we can be. But if the conversation in the boardroom is constantly saying, yeah, but why did this happen last quarter and what's going on? And can you prove that? Oh my goodness, it feels like we're back in high school. Can't we just do our job of building the future rather than that. So that makes it more difficult for great boards to uh, figure out the balance, because it's not like they
Mhm.
can just ignore all of those regs. They have to figure out how to do it. But a really good chair of a board is going to keep pushing them to say, yes, but let's make sure that the majority of our conversation is about the future, not the past.
Yeah. Yeah.
A point that I will underscore is that the culture in the boardroom has changed considerably.
Okay.
It used to be um, people with great resumes that got invited to bring their credibility to a company by being on the board. And then they would sit around and it was even 20 years ago, they were moving from just being the old boys club to being a real conversation about the company. But it's even more so now. For sure, the way that a board functions, indeed, James and Keith, it becomes more like what we've been spending decades helping executive teams try to create in their C-suite gatherings. A chemistry that makes it easy for them to all recognize the different value that they bring to the conversation, and that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. Again, though, that requires good leadership,
Yeah.
usually a good
Yeah.
chair that can keep that in front of them, as opposed to allowing differences of opinions to cause conflict and undermine relationships.
Yeah. Yeah. What
Well,
one of the
you,
things that comes up all the time is just the role of the board, and it will come up in our exec team meetings when we feel the board is not playing the appropriate role. And I know that's something that you address that in depth in the book, but maybe just walk us through what is the proper role of a board. What are they supposed to be doing? What are they not supposed to be doing?
Well, in the most simple of terms, I say the job of the board is to direct and protect. As we mentioned earlier, if the balance goes too far in the protect direction, then we mess things up. It's the board of directors, not the board of protectors. So direct and protect in the company's best interests. The tricky piece is the people that we put around the table. They're often coming from a career of getting things done, often as CEOs of other companies. And if they let that be prominent in their mind, if they thinking, oh, the reason I'm here is because I was so good at this in the role that I had, I guess I need to be doing that here. No, that is not the board's job. That's somebody on the management team that has that job. And so it's very common that board members, with the best of intentions, bring their energy to a doing function rather than a oversight function.
Okay.
Now we've got boards stepping on management toes. They think they're helping, but they need to understand that no one in management feels like a board member telling them how to do their job differently is helping. They feel it undermines them. It makes them wonder why they're there.
and Jim, do you set the expectation when you work with boards that the chairman should be or chairwoman should be clear around like setting some team norms or just modes of how this group is going to operate or like even the expectation of behaviors from each person or hey, this is how I view our role as a board? That I would think clarity about the board needs to happen at some point.
100%. The interesting thing is that truly the chair of the board doesn't have a lot of power in
Hmm.
comparison to the others. Whereas it's very clear in the executive suite, the CEO is in charge. So
Yeah.
people might not love what the CEO is saying all the time, but they know that they're supposed to do what the CEO's follow what the CEO is leading them to. So the role of the chair, it requires more of uh, a winsome approach where you're
Mm.
wooing everyone's um, moving along with you, as opposed to saying, "Nah, we're gonna do this. Just do it because I'm the boss." No, there's no, you can't claim that. you'll just get voted out of that chair pretty quickly.
Mm.
So, but I agree completely, James. Somebody has to make that happen. And a good chair figures out a way to pull that across, often by enrolling other influential voices around the table who will affirm that, yeah, this is worth us taking our time to do. Oh, I've seen this be very helpful in some other boardrooms, these kinds of
Mm.
things.
Yeah.
Mm. Mm.
So it's funny how when we're working with executive teams, we talk about, organizational health being reducing politics and reducing confusion. And how do you prevent a board from being the place where politics is the norm, that is the team or the board norm for how things get done?
A lot, I think, depends on your system for recruiting and confirming board members.
Okay.
Uh, we just need to be. There are some people that think democracy is like this super god, and we just need to put good options before the people. And in this case, the shareholders will vote on who should be on the board. And these are all talented people. It will be great. No, no, it isn't just talent that we need around the table. There is a chemistry that we need to be mindful about. There is a commitment to the purpose of the company that isn't just about making money. Sure, every board knows they need to increase the value of the company, but they need to care about what the company does in the world as well. So choosing those people, very important function. And it's often done by a nominating committee, or the governance committee does that as a part of its function, um, which is fine. But it shouldn't just be, we're looking for certain skills. No, we're actually looking for a fit to what we've established as a working culture in the boardroom so that we can be most effective.
Mm.
Again, Keith, as you know, that doesn't mean we're looking for people just like everybody else. No,
Right.
we don't want everyone singing the same song, but we do need them all singing the same song. They need to be uh, harmonizing as opposed to
Yeah.
all the same notes, as if
Yeah.
we don't need another voice doing the same thing.
Yeah.
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 It strikes
Yeah.
me you're talking a little bit more about like alignment on the big picture, but then also alignment on how we're expected to behave.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of a situation maybe with an activist board member. Like how do you advise, or what do you recommend for companies that find themselves in that position with an activist board member?
Well, often this means there's someone with a very particular agenda that isn't the agenda of the company.
Mm.
That is actually counterproductive.
Hmm.
Um, if you will allow me, I would go back a little in the clock and say, a board that wants to really be sure that they're leading the company well needs to be very intentionally reducing the likelihood that activists will get a foothold.
Mm.
And how does this happen? It happens when shareholders don't believe that their board has been listening to them, that
Mm.
they've been doing what they want to do, but not what the shareholders want to do. And an activist sees that opportunity and they come in like they're going to be the champion of those poor underdogs that aren't being heard, and they get a foothold. So the best approach is prevention.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's too late. Now we've got that
Yeah.
situation. Think about times when you've worked with leadership teams where there's been someone that just doesn't fit around the table.
Mm.
They've got perhaps a selfish agenda, and people are all seeing it. And what we need to recognize is that our human nature is that we will box them out.
Hmm.
We will we'll have a level of conversation in the room, but the real conversation happens somewhere else. Now, this is utterly unhealthy. Let's agree that this isn't what should be happening, but it's actually what will get happening when we have that kind of it's more than a difference of opinion. It's a faction in the boardroom
Hmm.
that you're talking
Hmm.
about, Keith.
Hmm.
So you either figure out how you can work against them and they disappear, or, and by the way, these activists usually have really deep pockets, so it's almost impossible to make them disappear. In that case, you have to have, I'll use a silly phrase that makes sense to me. You have to have a come to Jesus conversation, and figure out, how do we stop being factions, and let's figure out, well, what do we actually agree on that needs to
Hmm.
happen for our company? What's the most important thing that you need to see happen, Mr. Activist, um, that we can align with, and let's move in that right direction so that it stops being two factions. It starts being, we are trying to be the best company we can be. But
Yeah.
man, does this take work and time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jim, I'm wondering if you see a difference, or like maybe the pros and cons of a board where the leader, the chair, is the CEO of the company,
Hmm.
and when the chair is not the CEO of the company.
Well, let's acknowledge that many of our Fortune 500 companies are led by CEOs who also chair the board.
Hmm.
It's almost like a proof that you really are a great leader. And
Yeah.
there are lots of CEOs that they won't become the CEO. They won't accept it unless they are promised the chair
Yeah.
role as well. Well, part of it is just ego and status, and part of it is you can make more things happen when you've got that power of both of those roles. What what we are missing in too many of those cases is that it takes an amazing amount of talent and ability to pull that off, because
Hmm.
the CEO role is not a 40-hour a week job.
Hmm.
It's a
No.
all-consuming job. And it turns out a great chair is a pretty consuming job too.
Hmm.
So having, it's like, wait, the two most important roles in the boardroom are going to be carried by the same person? Can we just acknowledge that that's likely foolishness? It's why would you put all of that weight on one person?
Hmm.
The few people, I'm thinking of Jamie Dimon. He's amazing, and he's making it work, and he's graciously understood that it's not a license to just sit there and say, I want to do it and you can't stop me. It's a kind of responsibility to connect meaningfully and fully with the people around the board table, and then make a similar connection in the C-suite, and then keep those things moving together. Again, the likelihood that we, any one of us or the average person, has the talent to do that, both of those roles at the same time, is very low. So it's understandable, James, that people want it. It feels like it will let them get what they want done faster, and it often does for about a year and a half,
Hmm.
until the board starts to feel that they are being manipulated, and then
Huh.
it gets messy. Yeah, it's
Huh.
bad. Yeah.
Huh.
So let's
Well,
assume that somebody's heard that advice and the CEO and the chair are different people. How are they supposed to work together? What's paint the picture of the ideal, and then maybe what you see that goes wrong.
Well, let's agree that those two people actually do need to talk lots, because they are piloting two very important bodies, and those bodies need to move completely in tandem. The magic is when they understand the distinction of the role. So the CEO is the champion of the company. They are the ones that are making it happen.
Hmm.
The chair is the steward of the boardroom, ensuring that the board works together to give the CEO everything they need to accomplish the job they've given to him or her. And there needs to be great respect for each other. Yeah, it's not you don't just read a book and know how to do this. This is the kind of thing that it's people that have watched masters demonstrate it and absorbed how that's happening and carry it into how they chair a committee and then ultimately how they chair a board.
I would wonder, Jim, you would know more than me on this. If you had a chair who was CEO and wanted to go in a different direction and got voted down by the board, that would seem to have like different hurt feelings, or create maybe some animosity differently than if the chair were not the CEO.
Sure. And because they anticipate that, they do what politicians do. They have one-on-one conversations with individuals around the table. They figure out who's going to vote for what. So they know how a vote would land before they ever call it. And then they campaign with individuals to make sure that they've got a critical minimum of support before they will even bring it forward. But again, James, Keith, we know that politics is not actually a part of a healthy organization.
Yeah.
No, we are now seeing a leader playing games to get what they want, not a leader working with the strength of wonderful people who are bringing a mix of ability together to make a greater outcome possible.
Yeah.
That's a different job altogether. If the CEO would just release that, if we've got the right people on the board, I've got some horsepower there that is at my disposal. It's going to make me a better leader. It's going to make this a better company. I want to work with them as opposed to have them work for me.
Yeah.
So
go ahead, Keith.
I was going to pivot slightly into just, if you gave James and I the assignment of helping an executive team become more cohesive and aligned, get clear, focused, and aligned, we would just turn right to the 5 dysfunctions of a team, or the advantage.
Sure.
When somebody gives you the assignment of helping a board get to the place that it needs to go, walk us through what that looks like.
I think the starting place is a little different in that when people get to the C-suite, they know exactly what the job of the senior team is really supposed to be. That's not a guessing game. Sadly, almost shockingly, there's a crazy proportion of people who get to a boardroom that aren't clear about what the role of the board is.
Okay.
They just tend to bring much more operational aspect to it than there ought to be. The board's job is oversight. So no decisions about how things get done should happen in the boardroom. And no conversations about, we did it this way in my company and it worked really well. We should try that. It's the wrong conversation completely. So the starting place, Keith, has to be, let's just all get on the same page about what the job of the board really is. We are together confirming the direction for the company and ensuring protection of the company so that we can be the best company we can possibly be and create the greatest value that we can create in the world and financially for our shareholders. We are overseeing management to confirm that they're doing the best they can. We are not fixing management. We're not helping management. Even though we might have lots of ability to do that, that's not the job. And more than the chair needs to have that clarity to keep reminding it, because it will bubble up into the conversation every time they meet. Somebody will start crossing the line into the doing rather than the directing. And somebody has to say, oh, time out. I think we're starting to do management's job. Let's pull it back to the board level. And if everybody realizes, oh yeah, that's important to us, that's fine. But if we don't, now we got power personalities saying, I think we need to take time to talk about this. It's important that these guys hear it or whatever. Oh my goodness, it's a mess.
What are the big questions the board should be asking and talking about? If somebody said, let's bring it back to the board level, you'd say, yes, here are the questions.
Yeah. Well, remind us, Keith, what are the 6 questions that every leadership team should be answering?
Why do we exist? Right? As an organization, how do we, what problem are we trying to solve in the world? So why do we exist? Our core purpose, or core values. How do we behave?
And our core values. Yep.
Yep. What is it that we actually do?
Yeah.
And how are we going to succeed in doing it? So it's the guts of our strategy.
So the first 3 or so questions actually ought to be answered board and management as opposed to only management. Now, let's acknowledge that lots of management teams answer them because the board never gets around to answering them. And somebody's got to answer them. But it would be healthier for all of those leaders working together if the full management team and the full board would have really good conversations about the top 3 questions, and then confirm together what their answers are. So why do we exist? That's a very reasonable, not just reasonable, that's an essential question for the board to understand and have a sense of ownership about the answer. I'm not saying they answer it and management has to go along with their answer. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying together they figure it out and co-own the answer. Same with the values. You probably can think of too many examples, both of you, of companies that have clear values, and the management team has done a good job of figuring out what their core values should be.
Yeah.
And the board doesn't know them, and they sure don't follow them. Well, think of how that translates to everyone in the business. They think, wait, the people with the highest level of authority don't care about these things? How does that make any sense? And it's mostly because management and board haven't figured out how to bring their thinking together and, as I said, co-own those answers, have a shared responsibility for them. What does success look like? Boy, if a board doesn't know what the answer to that question is, then they are evaluating the CEO on a hidden answer, right? They're saying to themselves, oh, this is what we should do. And then they're upset if it doesn't happen, except they never told the CEO what that was. That is ridiculous. That can't work.
Yeah. I've on occasion through the years of working at Table Group come across executive teams that have to do some work on their alignment and cohesion and, and the 5 behaviors. And that's why the CEO reached out to us.
Sure.
In working with those teams, you start to hear that it's maybe so dysfunctional or there's not much alignment, and the board is diving in, and like different board members are going to different people on the team. Hey, tell me what's going on. And that almost builds more distrust and dysfunction on the executive team, and actually shows a little bit of misalignment between the board and the CEO. I'm wondering what your advice is to maybe a CEO in that case, or maybe to the board when that happens, Jim.
Let's start with the CEO. When the CEO sees that this work would be valuable, they should talk with first the chair and ultimately the board about why it's important work and that there's no reason to be fearful. We're not doing this work because something's falling off. The wheels are not falling off. We're doing this work because we want to go from the way we're working, which is good, to even better. So there needs to be a shared understanding about why this work is worthwhile and why the outcome will matter to the whole company, so that nobody around the board table is blindsided when somebody mentions, oh, did you know that the executive team had a 2-day offsite? They were gone for 2 days. I heard they had some pretty like kind of dukes up disagreement about some things. And then the board member might be thinking, oh no, is this breaking down? Well, what do you know about it? Well, here's what I heard. And no, the best response from the board member would be, oh yeah, that's important work that they're doing. I'm really glad that they're taking that step. Looking forward to what comes out of that. Oh, okay. Whether the person asking is a layer below the senior team or a member of the senior team. Yeah, I think that's the most important step to kind of head it off at the pass. Okay, let's talk about if it starts at the board level. The board might notice that there's a level of alignment that is available, a greater level alignment that's available to the executive team.
That was very diplomatic.
That was very
you said that.
positive. Yes.
I was like, I'm gonna write that down. There's a level of alignment that's available to you that you are not yet taking advantage of.
Yes.
I'm gonna totally remember that.
But another senior team that I've worked with got some really great help by a couple of guys I know, James and Keith, and you might want to talk with them. And that's not offside. Like, again, if we remember that these people are all on the same team, they're trying to make the company the best it can be, it would actually be irresponsible for a board member to notice that the senior team is tripping over each other in certain ways, but say nothing about that. They should figure out how to raise that, not in a, hey, CEO, you are not doing your job way, not in a critical way, but in a constructive way. And then the board, the best thing a board can do is say, what can we do to resource this? So that the CEO doesn't feel like, oh, great, you're raising a problem. And now in the budget that's already approved, which I've already got figured out is going everywhere I need it to go, you want me to pull some of that away and use it in a different way.
Yeah.
Well, that feels like a bait and switch. So no, resource them. Wouldn't you think that most CEOs would, in the end, feel fortunate to have a board that is for their success to that extent?
Yeah. And I think they would feel maybe a lack of trust from the board if the board and board members are going to specific people on the executive team and trying to get the real story of what's going on with the team.
Such an important point, James.
Yeah.
Again, it's common that board members do things with the best of intentions, but it turns out it's not going to have the best of outcomes.
Yeah.
And when we are asking individuals around a table to fess up, so to speak, tell me what is supposed to be kept confidential inside the room, we're putting them in a really awkward spot, and then we're kind of betraying that we're trying to catch them doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Rather than trying to support them to do the very best.
Yeah.
I'm sure that you guys would agree with me that the best approach to this is that the CEO has conversation with their team members saying, hey, I am all for you having positive, healthy, working relationships with anyone on the board.
Yes.
However, the communication about anything official about this company needs to go through me so that I'm fully aware of what's happening and the board is fully aligned. A phrase that I use for boards is that they have to learn to speak with one voice.
Yeah.
There shouldn't be 6 answers coming from the boardroom. There should only be one
Yes.
answer. And that means that everyone around the table needs to be ready to say the same thing when they leave a boardroom. When they're in the boardroom, of course, express your different opinions, even debate. It might feel like arguing sometimes, but when you get an answer, even if it's an answer you don't 100% love, it's the board's answer, and it is
Yeah.
now what you are speaking to anyone outside of the boardroom.
Yeah.
That's great.
Similar to the behaviors we'd have for an executive team speaking to the rest of the company.
Exactly.
Yeah.
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 In so many ways, James, there's great parallels between
Yeah.
a healthy executive team and a healthy board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Earlier we talked a little bit about what boards should be paying attention to, and some of those are obvious. I mean, they need to be looking at the results and how is the company actually performing. We talked about they're looking at the broad strategy, vision, direction of the company. What about the stuff we're talking about now? The culture of the organization, is that the CEO's job? Don't meddle in our affairs, or to what degree would you expect boards to get involved or to be interested in company culture compared to strategy or results?
This would be an area of evolution that I'm seeing, where I believe that the most effective companies are being led by boards that grasp they have a shared role in that, as opposed
Mm.
to a let's leave it. In fact, if we roll the clock back a long ways, we can all think of times when CEOs didn't really think it was even their job. That's
True.
that's HR. Like, let them do that.
Yeah.
And the sad truth is there's too many senior leaders, CEOs and board members who still see organizational health as an HR idea,
Hmm.
not a strategic imperative.
Hmm.
But I firmly believe it is a strategic imperative. And the best boards are recognizing if it's that significant for our company, we must understand what is our target and our reality
Hmm.
regarding our culture, the health of our organization, and we should be speaking into it, not
Hmm.
in a telling management how to do it, but in a asking management how it's going. What's the progress you're seeing? What would need to happen to take it to the next level? What would we, the board, need to do? And boy, I can think of a whole lot of CEOs that wish they had the permission to tell the board to behave themselves. Uh, it's like, well, since you're part of this company, it really would be nice if you would be exhibiting what we've identified as the 4 core values to this entire company. Uh, but I keep seeing you, like, obviously they're not going to say
Yeah.
this, but they're
Yeah.
thinking, I keep seeing you do things that absolutely contradict what we decided was our core values. Uh,
It reminds me, so we're big fans of Pat Lencioni's podcast, At the Table, and there's one episode that has the title Long Before the Headlines. And he explores this idea that, we see in the Wall Street Journal, a headline of a major blow up or a major disruption at a company, a CEO gets fired, a board member gets removed, or an activist and board member gets involved. And he said, the whole point is like, yeah, but long before that headline, there were things happening at a cultural level that probably most people were actually quite aware of, but nobody was talking about. And I think that speaks to what you're talking about here, that, all right, long before we get to the headline, this actually is a board level issue to think about and pay attention to.
100%. And indeed, it's almost like that is the definition of the board's job, to
Mhm.
answer questions and set clear direction on things that are going to be important a year from now, 3, 5 years from now. They are not talking about today or next week or even next month. They're not supposed to be.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so let's get things figured out long before the headlines. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this has been great, Jim. Really appreciate it. You're so valuable in learning more about boards, and really appreciate your thoughts here. Hey, when does the anniversary edition of this book come out?
September 29th is the release date.
Okay.
Lots of energy building towards that. And yeah, I'm excited. And I'm kind of impatient, frankly, because I'm so excited about what the new book has that I'm kind of holding back. I've got clients that say, "Oh, can we get 9 copies so that everyone around the table gets a book before we get together?" And I'm kind of feeling like, can I send you the PDF of the new version? Because it's got a lot more.
That's great. Well,
Okay,
congratulations
so
on that milestone.
Thank you.
Our
Thank you.
our third podcast with you will be the impatient author instead of the imperfect
Okay, yeah.
CEO or imperfect board member. No.
I'll have lots to say.
Well, Jim, thank you as always. This has been a real treat. And Keith, it was great to have you on board with this one, and
Thanks,
glad you
James.
got to be a part of this conversation with Jim.
Thank you, James.
And-
Thank you, Keith. I really enjoy these conversations.
Yeah, we'll have you again soon. And then for the listeners and the viewers, thanks for joining us. And we look forward to having you again on our next Org Health Advantage podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Org Health Advantage. Your hosts, Keith and James, are helping leaders change the world of work and invite you to share this podcast with your friends and colleagues. For more resources on building stronger teams and organizational health, check out tablegroup.com.